Trump may fly to Istanbul for Russia-Ukrainian talks and believes that this negotiation moment will be successful. But the Russian dictator is afraid to come to speak with Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president. So this and other topics and risks and proposals we will discuss right now. My name is Irina Uzlova, and today with us is Michael Sheitelman, political strategist. Michael, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Irina.
If Donald Trump flies to Istanbul for Russia-Ukraine talks, will Russian dictator Vladimir Putin come too?
No, certainly not. It is just unbelievable because he plenty of times he said that President Zelensky is not legitimate president of Ukraine or something like. Oh, I remember the exact claim by Mr. Putin. He said, if President Zelensky, in spite of not being legitimate president of Ukraine, is ready to negotiate, so I will form the group of negotiator and send to him. On the other hand, President Zelensky said certainly, absolutely certain, that he is ready to speak with Russians, but only with Mr. Putin, nobody else. And that is obvious that president is ready to speak only with president, not with some bureaucrats or somebody else. So this meeting will take place only if Putin will arrive personally and meet President Zelensky. Today is a very strange day. We are speaking on Monday, and President Zelensky said certainly that he will be in Istanbul on Thursday, but we didn't hear any answer from Russian side till now, because obviously they don't know what to say exactly. To say that President Putin is not going to negotiate in Istanbul, it is to say that he is very weak and he is afraid from President Zelensky, and he is afraid from open dialogue. And on the other hand, as I said, he just couldn't go to Istanbul to negotiate with Zelensky.
Our press secretary of the Russian President Dmitry Peskov commented on the proposal of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to meet with Russian dictator Putin in Istanbul on May 15th, told that Kremlin has already outlined his position on resuming negotiations. Putin clearly and confident outlined the position of resuming negotiations with Ukraine without preconditions, Peskov said. But it isn't no, it isn't yes. And what does Peskov mean when he speaks about without preconditions?
Yes, exactly. Without precondition, it means that, for example, we had previously a precondition for negotiation with Russia, and the precondition was withdrawal of all Russian troops from Ukrainian territory. Now, for example, we have as a precondition the 30 days ceasefire. This is also precondition. Russians are ready to negotiate without these preconditions, but Russians offered the place, Istanbul. Russians offered the date, May 15th. So, but they didn't offer any what will be the level of this negotiation. So, Mr. Zelensky, President Zelensky, offered the highest level of this negotiation when we are ready, and will be the highest level. And it is very difficult to find any reason to Mr. Putin not to come to negotiate. And obviously, our delegation is Mr. Zelensky. What is your delegation? Yeah. We don't see any delegation from your side. This is our answer. And by the way, Mr. Zelensky's decision to go to Istanbul was taken immediately after the post in social network of President Trump, who said, I want from Ukraine to agree to negotiation immediately. And President Zelensky answered immediately, yes, I'm going. But if we are looking for this post in social network of Mr. Trump, we could pay attention what he says in this post. He says Putin does not agree to ceasefire, and he wants the negotiation. Not Russia wants negotiation, but he wants to negotiate. He wants to negotiate, it means Mr. Putin wants to negotiate. So this post internet post by Mr. Trump says that Mr. Putin should negotiate from the other side. And we heard today from President Zelensky that he said that President Trump and Macron and all Europeans, everybody supports his idea to go personally and to meet Putin personally.
Yes, and all these European leaders told today that if Putin doesn't start a ceasefire on Monday, 12, then all sanctions will be provided against Russian Federation because they announced the ultimatum with Ukraine and the United States this Saturday.
Exactly, but this is the parallel track, let's say. There are two different tracks. One track is the pressure on Russia about ceasefire for 30 days. And European Union on Saturday declared this ultimatum towards Russia. And when Mr. Macron and his team, okay, it's not exactly team, but this is the Chancellor of Germany, Prime Minister of Poland, Prime Minister of United Kingdom, and President Zelensky, they in this quintet, they gathered in Ukrainian President administration in Kyiv, and they decided this, and they also called by phone Mr. President Trump, and President Trump also agreed for this ultimatum. So this ultimatum was published from not from one side, not only from Europe, only from Ukraine, but Europe, Ukraine, United Kingdom, and United States. And all the sides of this process agreed that they will put the new sanctions on Russian Federation if they don't agree to this ceasefire. So this is one track. But President Putin, president of Russia, wanted to stop this process and to initiate process of himself, to take the initiative to himself, and says, well, I want a negotiation, but not the ceasefire. Well, said everybody, we want both. Yeah, we take both also. Ceasefire and also negotiation. You should now today to start the ceasefire, and we will somehow to conduct the negotiation with you. So it means that all this Mr. Putin initiative does not stop the initiative of Europeans and United States about new sanctions. And I believe they made a very small diplomatic mistake when they said on Saturday that their ultimatum is to start ceasefire from Monday. They didn't say from what time. If you pay attention, then when Russians started their ceasefire, they said exactly from midnight this date till midnight this date. And today it was not certain, is it started or not started, the ultimatum. So they found the new way, and today from administration of President Macron we heard that, and also from Chancellor of Germany we heard that, okay, today till midnight we should start the ceasefire, otherwise Europe will put the new sanctions against Russian Federation. By the way, Mr. Peskov, who is press secretary of Mr. Putin, said, you can't speak with Russia in the language of ultimatums. Yeah, we could. We could answer it in French, German, Britain. Why not? We could speak with Russia exactly on this language. The most interesting point here also the Chinese position, because last hours Chinese Ministry of International Affairs of China, they joined this effort. They not started, this is the important, from diplomatic point of view, it is very, very important point. They didn't start their own process, their own track, no. Till now, we all this there in the separate track. For example, they started their 12 points peace plan 2 years ago. They started their plan with Brazil. It was also some separate plan of six different paragraphs. But now they said we are joining ultimatum. They didn't say ultimatum, but we are joining the idea of European Union and UK and US about starting the 30-day ceasefire from May 12th. That's the important point, that de facto they joined an ultimatum. Chinese, they joined an ultimatum. Which means, I believe, that President Xi, President of China, when he was in Moscow, he asked President Putin to start this ceasefire. And President Putin, de facto, he said no to President Xi.
Yes, Michael, I was wondering, telling the truth about the statement by Ministry for Foreign Affairs of China after really visiting and meeting with Putin by Xi Jinping, Chinese leader. But a lot of analytics experts told me that if Russian dictator Putin prolongs Russian-Ukrainian war, it will be useful and profitably to China because the deals like they looks today are enough good and comfortable for Chinese leader. Why these people can be wrong?
Because the situation just changed last night, really, in the world, totally. At least last weekend, let's say, everything has changed. Today, this night, United States and China, they stopped the economic war. They have frozen the economic war for 90 days, and they stopped the tariffs by US and by China. 145% was the tariff for Chinese goods by United States and 125 by China for United States goods. So they stopped that. They decided to negotiate, and they decreased these tariffs to 10% and 30% accordingly. So it is like exactly like the tariffs were before the April 2nd. Then President Trump started this economic war. So we stopped the economic war. One day before, if you paid attention, Pakistan stopped the war against India. So it was the first sign of this peaceful agreement between China and the United States. Pakistan is de facto Chinese proxy and India is US proxy. So they stopped the hot war, which were almost started between these two countries. We negotiated and stopped. And on the next day, we negotiated in Switzerland, where was a meeting between American Minister of Finance and Chinese Minister of I don't know what, because we have very strange position names, that is not exactly finance minister, but somebody from the government of China. And we decided to stop this war. So the next step is also to stop the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I believe it was also discussed in Switzerland in this negotiation between Americans and Chinese. This is, there is a big deal when Mr. Trump, President Trump, he have spoken about big deal in his first term. He spoke about big deal between US and Russia, but now we are on the age of big deal between US and China. And a big deal between US and China, it is not only about tariffs, this is only about spheres of influence. And it will be, I believe that in this negotiation it was said that, Russia is our Chinese country, and in Chinese sphere, and it is Chinese proxy, and Ukraine is in the US sphere of interest, and this is the reason why there was a signed agreement about Ukrainian metals and other goods, and we are going towards peace between US and China, and our peace agreement will be the part of this big deal.
So we see some successful chain of events by Donald Trump administration. Can really Stu Witkoff begin to make all these things simple and good? Or what reason that everything in this world global events become really good for the United States, for the participants of such conflicts and confrontations?
No, all the successful things, they come not from Mr. Witkoff, obviously, but from Minister of Finance of United States, Scott Bessent. And it was his ideas, not to say decision, because decision, it is President Trump decision, but his ideas to stop this economic war with China. It was his sphere of responsibility to negotiate with China all the conditions of this deal in Switzerland, and just he succeeded with deal with United Kingdom and now with China. But all this track of Mr. Vitkov is very weak and very, I don't know how to say, but it doesn't bring any practical result. They just discussed with Mr. Putin what exactly Putin wants. That's it. So the job of Mr. Vitkov was to hear, to listen to President Putin, to understand what exactly his claims, and that's it. That's it. And the answer was not from Mr. Vitkov, but from J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, that Russia wants too much. So Russia wants too much, and it means Russia will not receive just nothing if they want too much. If their claims were reasonable in some, in another parallel universe, so I believe that the Americans they were put a pressure on Ukraine. But in American eyes, it was not reasonable, and in European eyes, obviously, it was not reasonable. So I believe that mission of Mr. Vitkov may be finished. Maybe. I don't say that he will never meet Mr. Putin again, but at this stage, it doesn't look that President Trump he need his help in the Russian-Ukrainian track, not in the Middle East, but in Russian-Ukrainian track. Now the policy is changed in Washington. The policy from 2-3 weeks ago in Washington was to put pressure on Ukraine for agreement. But now the policy is vice versa, to put pressure on Russia for agreement and to negotiate with China about Russia. How we will deal with Russia. We, it means United States and China, about Russia. How we divide Russia between us. That's it.
Yes, we see that China controls Russian Federation, really, at all.
Yes, absolutely. But controls, it means control on government, on Mr. Putin, on prime minister who was appointed in Beijing, by the way, by a Russian prime minister. It is control about some Russian goods, Russian money, Russian oil, yes. But there are also other questions, like, for example, Arctic. Is it by Russian control or Chinese control? Or American control? Or, for example, Central Asia. Have you seen Chinese Central Asian soldiers and army? They participated in parade in Moscow. So the question is it Chinese army or Russian army? Yeah? Chinese allies or Russian allies? They participated as Russian allies. They participated as Chinese allies. And if United States still wants something, still have any interest in these countries, because this is very important region for United States. They had previously military bases in Kyrgyzstan, they had military bases in Uzbekistan, they have a lot of investment in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in oil, gold production, etc., etc. So obviously this is also, they have a reason to negotiate with China about that, but not with Russia. So they want, to make from Mr. C, how it is called, one window. All the questions about Asian countries, it is to Mr. C. And if you want something from Russia, you just call Mr. C, not to go to Moscow or somewhere.
Yes, we see. And the Times published today that all Putin's conditions look again like dreams about capitulation of Ukraine. So we understand that, and even if Russia presents themselves in Istanbul, even if they want to show some dream about negotiation process, they will only propose for us and for United States all these their proposals about capitulation, and that's all. And we saw it, we have seen it for all years of war.
This article from Times, I read some partially. This article, it looks like a reconstruction of the events of 3 years ago in Istanbul and reconstruction of the draft which was offered by Russian side to Ukrainian delegation 3 years ago in Istanbul. That's it. That is not some internal information from Kremlin or from some sources. That is just reconstruction by journalists. They reconstructed the situation of 3 years ago. Why? But why that it has a basement, this reconstruction? Because the advisor of Mr. Putin or his assistant, no, Mr. Putin assistant, Mr. Ushakov, he said that yes, we want in Istanbul to continue the negotiation of 3 years ago and to start from the result of the previous negotiation. But this sounds, like Kafkianian style, because they don't have, Russians, they don't have time machine to go 3 years ago. And they couldn't start the negotiation from April 12 or something when the negotiations were stopped in Istanbul. We just can't do that. Because the real result of the previous negotiation in Istanbul, it is not some paper, because any paper were not signed, yeah? But the result of this negotiation is 3 years of war and 1 million of killed and wounded people, and tens of thousands, not thousands, but dozens of destroyed Ukrainian cities. And this is the result of the previous negotiation in Istanbul. How we could use the paper from 3 years ago. And also the situation is absolutely changed, just absolutely changed, 100% changed. Ukraine is another country, Russia is another country, and the world is another world now. In March 2022, when the negotiation in Istanbul took place, Ukraine was a very weak country. Nobody believed that Ukraine will survive a couple of months. Americans, Europeans, as you remember, just left us. Just left us, I mean, they didn't leave us with help, but they left physically. Their embassies, they evacuated from Kyiv, and they said, wow, you will when Russia will win and Russia will take Ukraine, well, we will negotiate again. But the miracle happened, and the authors of this miracle is Ukrainian army, and Ukrainian army absolutely destroyed Russian army in Kyiv battle near Kharkiv. Kharkiv was almost encircled. Chernihiv, which is region center of Ukraine on the north, was fully encircled by Russian army. Kyiv was half encircled. But in all of these critical points, and we could add also Mykolaiv and Odessa, Ukrainian army took the lead and destroyed Russian army, and Russian army withdrew their troops to Belarusian territory and Russian territory from these important points, from these important cities. And during 3 years, Russian army never took so many Ukrainian territory like in March 2022. In March 2022, Russian army controlled more than 30% of Ukrainian territory, and it was 20 kilometers from the center of Kyiv, 10 kilometers from the center of Kharkiv, or 5 kilometers. And Russian army was in a couple of weeks from taking the capital city of Ukraine, Kyiv, which is, by the way, the biggest city in the European Union. Just to compare and to understand what about we are speaking, Kyiv is the biggest city in the European Union. Maybe Rome is biggest, but I believe that Kyiv is the biggest city in the European Union. So it was the situation, the real situation on the land in March 2022. But in April 2022, everything is changed, and Russia lost these battles, and they never was afterwards in such a good situation in the front line in the war, in the battlefield. So now they couldn't want anything from Ukraine, just anything, because they lost in all these battles. This is first. Second, Russia in 2022 was rather a rich country than poor. Now it is very poor country. With half of budget they spent on the war, half of the budget. They lost 1 million people, and their budget just shrinking with decreasing prices of oil. And it is shrinking because of sanctions. and they can't leave the country because of sanctions, and half of their government is war criminals, declared war criminals by Hague Court, International Court. And Ukrainian army, vice versa. Ukrainian army in March 2022 was lack of shells, was lack of military jets, was lack of missile artillery systems, yeah. And now Ukrainian army has American, German, Norwegian, European, everything, French jets and American jets F-16 and Mirage, and we have most modern weapon. And we also, by the way, we destroyed Russian fleet, Russian Navy in Black Sea, totally destroyed Russian Navy in the Black Sea. So now the situation is absolutely different from the March 2022. And now is Ukraine could come with some conditions like Russia should withdraw their troops, Russia should to limit their participation in some international military organization, etc., etc., etc. But it is absolutely senseless now to discuss the paper which was not signed 3 years ago.
Yes, we see that Putin lives in some unrealistic world and believes that this will destroy him too, because he doesn't understand all such conditions and all changes we see now. Michael, thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you for joining us and for your clever opinions. See you next week. Take care, please.
Thank you, Irina. Bye.
Michael Sheitelman, political strategist, Irina Uzlova, my name. Thank you guys for watching us, for joining. Leave your comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sheitelman and War and Politics 24. Take care.